Order, let record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The time is 12:03. I wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone present. Please turn off the sound on all electronic devices. We give the opportunity for citizens to make comments on topics relevant to district business. We do not have any requests for this meeting. So our next item is information items, update on the budget development status for the 25-26 school year. And we have Kevin Besaw and Norma Friddle.
Thank you, sir. As we continue to progress through the budget season, we are continuing to monitor the legislature as they move forward. I believe today is their last day, so we'll hopefully know something sooner rather than later. But of course, the governor has I don't remember exactly the number of days, 20 or 30 days, to sign anything that he's has in his possession at this point. So. We'll be quick today, just doing an update of a little bit of the information that has changed since the last meeting. Of course, we'll always remember our budget goals, high quality instruction and resources, retain our high quality workforce, healthy fund balance and safety and security. And then just a little bit of the update, the really only update on this one, this slide is the legislation, House Bill 2 is currently on the governor's desk. And as of the last few minutes, I've not heard that he signed it yet, so we're still waiting on that to see if that's really going to come to fruition. We assume it is, but you never know. And again, there's the things that were added in there. The basic allotment went up, it went down. Just point out that it was $55 is where it ended. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but just to remember, to combat inflation, it was estimated the districts would need around $1,300 to increase to be able to match the inflation number since 2019, when the last time the basic allotment was increased. Included in there is teacher retention allotments. They specify classroom teachers, so it's a little bit different than we're understanding than what we have usually done with our teacher salary schedule. The counselors, librarians, nurses, those things are not included in that. They have been in the past, but that's taken out is our understanding at this point. Again, $2,500 for each 3 to 4 year experienced teacher, $5,000 for 5 years and more, and some other items there. They did add $5 million for school safety and security. We'll talk about that one a little bit more. And then this slide was in the last one, but it has changed just ever so slightly. You'll notice down at the bottom on the right-hand corner, it's a calculation between the current law and then what House Bill 2 has in there. And so it shows our Title I tier allotment, our Tier 1 title allotment is $8.6 million. And we'll go through a little bit more of how that breaks down, but it's like I said, the slight increase in basic allotment, but there is a large targeted sections on this. So it's targeted as to where we need to use it, how we can use it, and different things, where the basic allotment would be more discretionary and allow us a little more flexibility. Some of the things that came out in this one of the things we wanted to point out, the projected increase in basic allotment, as we said, was $55 per ADA, which calculates out for us about $629,000. But a couple of the things that the Senate added in there when they had the bill, the pre-K funding and the early education allotment, which is combined, how they did it, they adjusted that formula, so that really reduces our funding on that by $186,000. And they specifically said that they funded the $55 basic allotment by freezing the golden penny. For us, that instead of increasing, I believe it was $1.29 per golden penny supposed to go to 132, I believe, this year, and then next year was supposed to go to around 140. So that's been frozen for the 25-26 year. That would reduce our funding about 384,000. So our real increase from the projected basic allotment of 629,000 calculates out to about 50. I believe that's about 55,000. So it's not a lot when you get right down to it. The other thing, a basic costs allotment, that actually is $1.7 million. They called that the ABC allotment. It's supposed to cover everything, as they said. One of the things that it will have to cover is the benefits for the teacher retention allotment. The teacher retention allotment, as we said, the $2,500 for 3 and 4 and $5,000 for 5-year plus, that's for salary only. So the TRS, Medicare, any things that the district portion has to kick in, that's not covered. So that would have to come out of the 1.7. Also, property insurance increases, utility cost increases, security allotment shortfall. We've talked about our security allotment. That we spend quite a bit more than they had done, even though they've increased it some. It will not quite get to cover 100%. It will get about 50% of our SROs and our armed security. So, that allotment has to cover some of those costs. Then if you see on the right side there, the teacher retention allotment portion, and then they threw in something that was added, a staff retention allotment. So the teacher retention allotment, our portion calculates around $4 million. And that's essentially how it's structured. It's really a pass-through, similar to like a teacher incentive allotment, where the district or the TEA funds the district based on the certain amount that goes to the teachers, and then we pass it through. This is going to be the same kind of thing. We'll receive the funding. It will go through to the teachers. The difference between the teacher incentive allotment is we're allowed to reduce the payout by the TRS and all of those kind of things. So the district actually isn't out money, additional money. This one is not that way. We would have to use that other allotment to cover that. And then staff allotment, that's to take care of the additional staff. And that's basically everybody that's not covered under the teacher allotment, and it excludes administration from that. So campus and district admin are not included in that, can't be used for that. And then I guess look down below there, to meet these challenges, again, we're still continuing through attrition, reviewing all positions for potential consolidations, cost savings. We're refining a skyward position control. We've talked about that a little bit. That's been a valuable tool, and we're at a point we feel that's very valuable for us. We can analyze vacancies and refine master schedules a little bit more. Actually quite a bit more than we have in the past, because we have that capability with this system. So we're actively looking at that even this week as we go forward. Consider reducing, eliminating the retention stipends that we have done in the past. If there's no funding available for that, it's going to be difficult. And then just considering all options to reduce expenditures as we go through. And then this is of course, the budget development timeline. We've had that for you in the past meetings. And of course, we are at the June 2nd right now, final update. Basically, what we've talked about, we've discussed, we've had phone calls, Norm and I, with Amanda Brownson of TASBO and Amy Campbell of TASB, our consultants in that area. And they are strongly suggesting that, especially the July 1 fiscal year districts adopt the budget on current law and wait for all of the dust to settle on the new changes in that. So not to adopt, try to adopt based on the new changes, since there's so many unknowns, certain things like just the definition of what they say classroom teacher is. If you jump out there too fast, and give raises based on our interpretation. If that's different than their interpretation, we could give raises that then you would either have to take back, or you would just have to fund them if you'd already done it. Things like that. But there are a lot of things that need to be defined by them before we actually would feel comfortable moving forward with that. So the recommendation by them is to adopt on current law, and then amend as we are able to. July and August is still pretty good times to amend. The teachers have not started yet. Their pay runs through August 31 for their current year, so their new contracts and pay would not start until September 1. So there is a little bit of window there to do that. But this is one of the things, we adopted the June 30 year end last year to buy ourselves a little more time and bolster our fund balance, which it did that. But one of the drawbacks to the June 30 fiscal year end is the legislative sessions. When they get to the end of the session like this, and if they are making significant changes, it's difficult to prepare the budget and move forward adopting on time unless you use current law and then make amendments, which is fine. We can do amendments as often as necessary, so that's not really an issue. I think that's really what we were going to update on.
Can you go back a couple of
Okay.
slides there? And on this one, I just want to make sure I understand. It says basic cost allotment must cover benefit costs for teacher retention, allotment, raises, property, et cetera. And then over here on the right, it says teacher allotment, $4 million. So is this $4 million in addition to the 1.7 or, okay.
Yes.
All right. So
yes. So the 4 million, go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say the 4 million is allocated. That will be based on the number of teachers that we have in those certain categories as defined by TEA once they roll that out. And that money would basically be a pass-through. Will be funded on that particular amount, and then that will be passed through to the teachers in their certain categories. But that will be all. There won't be funding for the TRS part of it, the Medicare, any other benefits that the district has to pay on that money would have to come out of then the 1.7.
Mr. Besoff, if I may. Mr. Besoff,
Yes, sir.
what, if you had to make a guess right now, if everything stayed the way we're looking at and has been proposed, what is our net change? Do you have a ballpark? Are we lower than we were last year? Will we be higher? Will we have a little bit more money? Do you have any idea? I don't know if y'all, and I know it's hard because they're all moving targets that we're trying to hit, but if they were to settle on everything as has been proposed, where would that leave us?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that this morning, in fact, just to try to iron that out. And, of course, we're still looking through the skyward. We've got vacancies that we need to look at and iron out through those, see if those positions are real at this point yet or necessary, different things. But it's going to be difficult with this bill as passed to get much better than we were last year with the $6.2 million deficit. It's going to be very, very difficult to do that. There's going to be some major cuts or things that I mean, we've talked about other districts are doing, but that's kind of where we would be.
At some point, you don't have a choice, and
Right.
it's a hard decision to make. So you're saying if everything's
Right.
the same, we would still be the
It-
5 million short or
Yeah,
whatever deficit that we were
the
in
6,
last
what
year?
we did last year, yeah.
Okay.
And that's, I mean, other than that, you're going to have to start looking at, schools, programs, different things that class sizes, all of
hard
those
stuff.
kind of things that we've already looked at, and we've already done some
Yes,
of
sir.
those tweaks and things, but, we would maybe have to start looking at more drastic.
Thank you.
I have a question. You mentioned it a couple of times, and this may be something for Barbara or somebody else, but you said that we're waiting on the true definition of certified teachers. And
Classroom teachers, yeah.
classroom teachers. So some of this money that would be going to classroom teachers, if we have, which of course we do, we have wonderful non-certified teachers that are working on it, or non-certified teachers, are they going to be affected negatively in this if they're non-certified, or even if they're working on it?
I don't think it specifies certified.
Yeah.
As far as I'm
Okay,
aware,
okay.
they've
Do you want to
not.
elaborate? The definition typically is defined as in the number of hours they serve students in the classroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like 4 hours, I mean,
Yeah.
you want to elaborate on
I
that?
just don't want, it triggered a little question mark in my mind when you said that, and I don't want any of our teachers that aren't on vacation and are listening to this board meeting to worry about that.
Yeah, and we were, Friday when we were looking at this, as it was coming out, we had to, had the code out, and we're looking at, how does that define a classroom teacher? It's number of hours that they actually teach. I believe it's 4 hours, with the children, and it's clearly defined in the education code. But we want to make sure before we go forward with funding on that is the definition that the Senate means and TEA interprets, and there's a few steps that have to go through.
Okay,
Because
so-
in our past, and what's been the case in before was the teacher schedule, our teacher salary schedule included counselors, included our registered nurses, included librarians, and that was pretty standard. But in this case, they've peeled some of that off, is our understanding, and so it's going to be defined as a classroom teacher, which we could make an interpretation of what they mean, but again, that's, we're getting out on a limb, and if, we start funding areas that maybe they didn't intend, or we just feel like it's a better situation to wait until they definitively say, define that, where that goes.
So it's
Yeah.
not the definition of teachers being certified or uncertified. It's the definition of teachers versus counselors and librarians and some other things.
That's my understanding, yeah.
Okay.
They've defined it as just classroom teacher.
So our teachers, certified, working on certification, uncertified, are okay.
We will know for sure once
Yeah.
we get the true definition. The thing that we're all shocked in every single school district is the amount of people excluded from the compensation package.
Right.
They've made it abundantly clear that the 0 to 2 year teacher will get nothing, which is alarming. And then, to Kevin's point, they typically, when we talk about the teacher pay structure and that scale, that almost always includes registered nurses,
Right,
certified
anyone serving
librarians, and certified
the
counselors.
students.
And they have all been excluded as well.
That is-
So every district is left contemplating how to best address compensation with all the exclusions. So it's, that's why they're saying determine our budget based on current law that is clearly defined. There's a lot of unknowns still, so
Yeah.
we're hoping for the best.
One thing we've heard too about, it's a little bit of a change on this, the basic costs allotment, that $1.7 million. I've heard it talked about, in fact, on our, locally, that, and Ms. Carabine has talked about this a lot, that it would be good if the district was, or all districts were funded on enrollment, not necessarily average daily attendance. Well, so in this particular instance, this allotment is funded on enrollment. That's the only thing. I mean,
Yippee, we got some.
nothing else
Small
changed,
segment.
but
It's because Ms. Waller talked to him that day.
that could be, that could
She
be.
got through to him
Right.
some.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I've heard it talked about out there, and it's come across as, oh, well, now you're getting funded on enrollment. Well, only on that particular allotment. The basic allotment, all the other allotments, everything else is still on average daily attendance. So that's another change that they threw in to complicate things a little bit, I guess, but, and muddy the waters for everyone else out there that's listening to all of this.
And the STAR test going away that they were holding over the heads of the people that wanted that died. So,
Senate Bill 4,
yeah.
Was it the previous slide where it showed the difference? Had yeah. And that's not $571 per, so tell me again, what is this?
So this is a comparison to, from current law to the House bill. And so that's a $571 increase in revenue per ADA is what that says. But again, you go back to the biggest part of that is the 4.5 million. And actually, that's combined with the staff allotment, but the teacher allotment is 4 million of that. So basically half, which we're grateful for that funding for our teachers and all that. But when you saw basic allotment and then they reduced the basic allotment by those other items, a lot of it is tied up into areas that we are restricted or it's targeted to certain areas. We don't have discretion on what
And
we
so
do
if
with
you
that.
go to the next slide, So it looks like maybe we got a 571 increase, but because they made these other adjustments,
Right.
and we
It's-
have to still pay for, you know, I started to say Social Security, but
Yeah, the
TRS.
Medicare. part, but
TRS
then
and all the other
TRS,
things,
yes.
yeah, it's not included in that either, which means we have to figure out how to pay for that too.
Right.
So, really,
Yes, ma'am.
not much of an increase.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the frustrations is they tout what a big increase it is when it was nothing last time, so it's kind of,
And that's
Easy.
why I did want to get that out, that even though they were saying we get all these increases and they've
Yeah.
gone up 55, it's really, the net is nothing.
it's, they had so much to make up to get
Yes, sir.
back to
Right.
zero, really, but anyway.
Right.
All right, any other questions? Thank you very much. And we'll move on to strategic plan and bond steering update. Dr. Merrill?
Ms. Friddle, now you know why he decided to retire. Ms. Friddle, I said, now you know why he decided to retire.
Yes, sir.
I've got a team joining me. We're going to tag team the slide deck. We appreciate the opportunity to come back. I truly have lost track. I think this is the fourth or fifth time we've been in the boardroom, so I appreciate the opportunity to sort of address it. And I've got, just for introductions, Mr. Griffin beside me, and you obviously know the two sitting to my left. They just presented. So we're very, very thankful for the opportunity, and we're just sort of doing recaps. We'll be back in the boardroom whenever you ask, and just kind of moving into the future. But we're excited to share a little bit of the work that the committee's already done. Just a quick reminder of the purpose, and I clearly won't read it, but the slide may look a little different, but the priorities and the purpose is still the same. We're engaging the broader community and soliciting feedback to inform our work, and then obviously developing options and sound recommendations to share to the Board of Trustees. And so we started with bond steering. We're going to get through that. It started with strategic planning, and a few weeks into it, it moved to bond steering, and we'll walk through that calendar here shortly, but just kind of a jaunt down memory lane. The goal was to truly look and keep the big picture in mind, and we were thankful to bring Mr. Griffin on board, and he'll talk just in a second about the facility assessment and what that looked like, and that facilitation and that deep work that we did there. So again, prioritizing student needs, developing a fiscally responsible plan, keeping the big picture in mind, and then obviously as we moved into bond steering, hopefully serving as ambassadors as a proposed plan. You'll see pictures there of sort of the work that's been discussed and that is continuing to be moving forward. Where are we? This is kind of an outline of the 9 weeks worth of work that we've been doing. It was a kind of a bold request to ask our entire community to come together for 8 straight weeks, which they wholeheartedly got behind, which we're so appreciative of. And it started with that work of the committee purpose, alignment, and then it quickly moved into current and future needs and assessments. And it got to be that 6th week where it really moved from, hey, this is strategic planning, conversations, to I think this is a bond steering. And it was sort of gradual and organic as it moved through those coming weeks. And you could just hear in the questions and in the comments about, like, well, what are we going to do with this? We've got all this information. We've got our demographer. We've got our facility assessments, which we're going to talk about in a second. We've heard from our departments. We've seen the financial implications, what that looks like as far as what's happening in the legislature. And they just started basically asking, what are we going to do with this? Is this moving towards something more concrete in the sense of, are we moving towards a bond conversation? And that was at week 6 where we really stopped and we transitioned the group, asked if they were comfortable transitioning from strategic planning to bond steering. And then began the exercise of really looking at that build-a-bond and that discussion of what could be and what would be proposed. And again, we're meeting on week 9. And again, we're into the work very deeply, but we're getting to that consensus membership. And again, we agreed early on in meeting 1 what consensus would look like. And for our group, it was 75%. So the group of our community members would come to a 75% consensus for each of the projects, and then that would make the recommendation. Again, obviously understanding all along the way that the board is the one that ultimately would call for any type of bond referendum in conversation. So when we look at the major potential categories of need, there really were 3 that kind of just surfaced. One is general purpose. And these could potentially be even the referendums if in November, if in August you called for it, that would make for that voting in November. But the general purpose, which MEPT, academic, that's kind of the larger, typically the larger category, where you'd see representation from a bunch of different campuses, if not all of our campuses. And the MEPT work is the mechanical engineering, plumbing, and technology engineering, and then obviously academic. And this is a lot to maintain our buildings, to keep them sound and secure, and then moving forward with a lot of those things that you see listed there. And then technology with some infrastructure things that would be a separate referendum, and the third one would be athletics, is where we believe the work of the committee has led us to those three major subcategories that would be up for election. Now, facility condition assessments, we got into a lot of work, and this is obviously a lot of things on a screen. You'll see to the right there, we did a prioritization exercise where they put green and yellow and red dots, and we talked a lot about that MEPT stuff. But I'd ask Mr. Griffin just to talk a little bit about what that facility condition assessment looked like and what that information gave us.
So the reality is we're constantly trying to streamline and improve. Obviously, the presentation y'all had just prior to this shows you that we've got to do more with less on a regular basis. It's been mentioned many times that we have an amazing staff that's done an incredible job of facilitating and keeping this stuff running and keeping it in operation. The problem with a lot of this information is locked in people's heads. And so we've got to do a better job of actually using our tools here locally to get some of this information documented. But the facility assessments is something that we should keep up with 365 all the time, nonstop. We made some recommendations to use certain tools that we'd already previously used, only because it was to expedite and get that information that they had. But I'd like to see us move forward with getting that information localized, getting it invest in our technology system so that we've got a better quick glance as our district and the age and the availability and stuff. So we're always going to be looking for ways to improve, and we've got amazing people that we just have to give them the green light and let them start helping us out there.
Yeah, and speaking to that, like life cycle replacements, those types of things are really, I think, very healthy exercise, and one that Mr. Griffin has obviously, we've got it in some places and kind of in our own heads, but we want to put it down on paper so that we can see it and we know exactly what it is. And that's part of the work of the committee, and that's what we've done. At the same time, when that's come up like, hey, it's at its life expectancy, it needs to be replaced, that's where the committee really stepped up and said, hey, I think we need to consider coming to a bond referendum. And we'll show you financially sort of why that made sense and why even 3 or 4 years ago we said this is the timetable. We knew back when we did 2020 that at some point within the next 4 to 5 years, this was going to be a conversation that came back. Now, we talked a little bit, Kevin talked about and Norma talked about that unfunded mandates. This was based on old legislation, but it still highlights a very just sadly a true reality is that we have a lot of unfunded mandates, and you'll see the negative 4.7 million and negative 2.9. Even though they may have closed the gaps in some of those with the allotments, we're still on an underfunded mandate. And so that's where you take the money that was given for our maintenance and operations, and we're having to spend it in areas that we might not have wanted to, that if we were properly funded, we would be able to spend that in different areas. And so this is just an example of what it looks like. And again, we talk to our departments, safety and security, transportation, athletics, CTE, fine arts. So on top of the facility assessment, we talked to all of our departments, and they brought needs out. And they said, look, these are things that we need. These are things that we think would take our district to the next level, that would really bring needed change. And so they got an opportunity to present, and then those are items that made it to the committee for them to be able to select as potential consensus items that would make a bond referendum. And I'll let Kevin and Norma talk a little bit about the finances and what that looks like.
Correct, and we've seen this slide, of course, many times, just to make sure and everyone's clear on that the general operating fund, the maintenance and operations budget is completely separate from the INS or the debt service fund. And so what we would be talking about here is the INS fund, which basically passing a bond if that were the choice of the decision of the board. And then how we fund that, that's completely a separate item, a separate tax rate on the.
Mr. Beast, if I may interrupt real quickly, I just want to make clear to everybody listening as well that we can't pass a bond to pay our teachers more. I get asked that a lot, but why don't you just pass a bond? We would happily vote in favor of a bond to get our teachers more, to get everybody else. So I just want to make it, I'd like you to explain that to us, that that is not an option for us.
Yes, sir. That's our mainly our operations, maintenance and operations side there. You see the salaries, utilities, supplies, repairs, fuel, those kind of things. Our day-to-day operations, we cannot use bond funds for that. The bond funds can only go for paying off the debt that's passed by the voters, and that will be defined by a resolution that would be passed by the board to be voted on. But it's basically generally almost always for facilities, infrastructure, major purchases of that nature, not day-to-day operating expenses.
And since Mr. Gonzalez brought that up, the flip side of that is that we also hear that why don't you be more frugal and why don't you save some of your money that you get from M&O and use that for striping parking lots or whatever it is that you are trying to pay for out of bond money or buying buses or whatever. And yeah, we could do that and pay our teachers less, and because that's what it would boil down to. And not just teachers, but everybody works for the district. We talk about teachers all the time, but we never want to overlook all the other folks that we have working for us that have contact with students or part of their lives. Part of what makes us a good school district is all our staff. So it's frustrating when people think, well, I didn't borrow money to buy my car. I saved up and paid cash for it. Well, that's great. We could try to do that, but again, the way we're set up, it would be impossible for us to compete fairly with regard to salaries.
Mr. Staff, I would even point out, I 100% agree. The greatest example of the two that we talked about are the transportation safety and security, the unfunded mandates, which goes directly to you. This is just a smaller example of the problem that exists that's created.
Yeah, and I would add to that one, Brian, go back to that slide. So we see the state allotment on the old law was $521,000 for us. You might have noticed in the slide we just presented, it's a little over $600,000 additional funding. So that's going to put us at 1.1, a little over that. So you can see there, though, our cost for the year was $3.4 million. Just our SRO and our armed security for the elementaries and secondary campuses is almost $2 million in itself. So even the additional funding that would come from the new bill, if that is actually signed, would still only be half what we need just for our security officers on our campuses.
Kevin, can you repeat what you said on the two bucket slide about what was defined by board operating procedure?
So when we go out for a bond, our bond council will draft up a resolution calling for the bond, and so it will be defined in that resolution, which becomes the referendum. It'll be defined in there what we are asking the voters to approve on that bond. So generally, it's going to be those kind of items. The facilities, we have put buses on there, and renovations, major expenditures, not. You can't put salaries on there. You can't put just day-to-day operation items that would generally be kicked back by the Attorney General, and they would not allow us to go forward. Because that will have to be, bond council will write it up. It'll be approved. It has to all go to be approved by the Attorney General before we can send it out.
These are examples of what the three possible referendums that you could decide to put dollar amounts, and those would have the projects listed underneath.
Right.
And so the bond council, as well as, obviously, they're going to make recommendations. We'll go to the Attorney General. Oh, sorry. These would be the three things. So typically the general purpose is the largest because of the various things, and then obviously underneath that would be different line items.
There were several bills introduced to try to make it harder to pass bonds, quite frankly. Did any of those gain traction enough to get out to the legislature?
We don't believe so, no,
I
sir.
don't believe it, no. But yes, there were many.
But we could expect those in the future.
We hope not.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. All right, Kevin.
Right, and so then this is our cup analogy of our district funding, and of course, the maintenance and operations, the TEA basically sets our tax rate and our revenue for the year, and then the local property taxes fill that revenue cup to the certain amount, and then whatever's left is made up by the state. When our property values go up, they'll compress the rate, but basically compression has been done to the point where pretty much every district is at the floor that they'll allow you to. But then if we get more property tax revenue, then that just fills the cup a little further, but the cup doesn't get any bigger. The state just reduces the amount that they fund us with. So essentially, we get the same amount of revenue. It just comes in different proportions from property taxes and state funding. And then this one, we've talked as we've gone through this whole process, and the committee started looking at, the cost of these items and some of the things that, they were proposed or wanted to look at and consider. The question came up, well, how much, what is our capacity? How much can we do? Of course, we had a couple of discussions about that, but essentially, as we look at it, the maximum tax rate for INS purposes that is allowed by the state is 50 cents. We're currently at 27 cents on that, so we're considerably below the maximum that is allowed by the state. Of course, between 27 and 50 has to be approved by the voters. That's the criteria that's required by them. But at this time, what we're estimating, we could, without a tax rate increase, so still stay at the 27 cents, we do have capacity because of paying off bonds early, because of the way we've structured the debt as we've gone in past years. We can go roughly to about 400 million without raising the tax rate. Now, it still would be more debt, of course. You're going to take on, if it was 400 million, for example, it would be additional debt, but you would just pay it off using the same tax rate. So it would just be a longer payout in that regard. And of course, the ballot language, no matter whether there's a tax rate increase or there's not a tax rate increase, that's going to have this is a property tax increase on the ballot. So the Attorney General's been very strict on that. When they first came out with this in 2 sessions ago, I think, the districts tried to put different things on there saying, well, it's a property tax increase, but then say this is not a tax rate increase and there's examples of all kinds of things, but the Attorney General has been very strict on that. And really, at this point, nothing else is allowed to be put on there except for that statement. So just as an example of what that will say when we get there. And of course, there's a packet that has to be put together, a voter information packet. The bond counsel would help with that. All of those kind of things to explain all of this. It gets a little bit complicated, but as most things do, it seems like with the state anymore. But
And these are the next steps, key dates and deadlines. We wanted to just make y'all aware. Obviously, we've got a meeting coming up on June 23rd, which is meeting 10. I'll be here in the boardroom. Meeting 11, if needed, would be July 9th. And then the last day to order a general election would be August the 18th. And then we've got the dates there for voting and early voting, applying for mail ballots. And then obviously election day would be November 4th. And this is all in statute. So we're just kind of backing it up from election date, and that's where we get the August the 18th date. So if indeed you did want to call something, that would be the dates that we would need to do so. Any questions? All right. We appreciate the opportunity to come and present. Thank you so very much, and for us to do the work. And we look forward to seeing you in future meetings.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next item is teaching and learning annual purchases of supplemental educational support and operational software solutions. Dr. Ibarra.
Thank you, Mr. Stasny. So we are here again today for the annual review and renewal of software purchases and supplemental supports This is something we come to the board every year and ask for, and look for those purchases that are over $50,000. Most of these are funded from federal grant money or some a little bit here from local because of the rules tied to those grants. But overall, these are the purchases that we bring back each year for various purposes. So today is just for information. And then if the board would like, we can add them to the evening meeting for action and consideration. But just two big categories of purchases. One are operational things that we need to do business from an instructional lens. And then the other side over there is supplemental support, things that we do to supplement the main curriculum or the main resources in the district for certain populations. And at the bottom, those are various funding sources that are used for these purchases. So on the left, I'm going to go through these very quickly, but please know I'll be happy to go back and answer any questions that you might have. We have MAP by NWEA. This was previously utilized in grades K through 12, but in the coming school year, we are recommending a reduction of that particular software and assessment package to be just grades K through 1, and then also keeping the or K through 2 rather, but keeping the literacy piece of it through 4th grade, which assesses the reading level of a student. So this is actually a reduced cost over the prior year. The prior year was roughly $220,000. So this will be a reduction to $86,000 for the coming year. Packaged with that, I'm going to skip and go back. Packaged with that is Eduphoria is an increase this year. Typically that's about $60,000. It is increasing to roughly $100,000 because we are reducing MAP. We are picking up test banks through Aware and through Eduphoria and also assessments through there. So because of that, that one will be increasing in the coming year, but it will allow us a lot more flexibility and data tools as well. So just wanted to be really transparent with while MAP is decreasing, this one is increasing as a result of that, but still a cost savings overall. Branching Minds is utilized to track student interventions, both academically and behaviorally. It is required by law to track all of these things and have that data go from one teacher to the next. This software package allows us to facilitate that transfer of information from one school to the next and one teacher to the next so that we can coordinate services to support a student. It does a lot with writing the communications for the families and tracking the data, as well as providing ideas for interventions for students that will help support them both behaviorally and academically. It is a time saver for our teachers. So while it is expensive, it is funded out of Title and state compensatory education, and it is a great resource for our faculties. Frontline eSped, this is a compliance piece that can only be funded out of the local budget because it is required to have the ARD paperwork, the review and dismissal committee paperwork, but it is also something that allows us to keep very tight controls over what's transpiring in our meetings. Without it, they're simply, you have to have a software package. You can't go back to the paper pencil version of these types of meetings. I think Dr. Warren might have a stroke if we did that. But at any rate, this is priced per student, so we always say up to $65,000. We don't expect it to be that much, but because that number fluctuates when students are identified, it has to have a little bit of flexibility in what we're asking for. And then similarly, I forgot about this one. This one is one we brought last year. It was Goal Book. It was to support the ARD process and to help write those goals that have specific requirements from the state and the federal government. We believe now, Dr. Warren and her team, that we do not need to ask for renewal of this software package. While it was wonderful, we have other free versions that we can utilize now that have become available, and so we're shifting to those types of supports rather than purchasing $160,000 for Goldbook this year. So that's a cost savings as well.
I was looking at the songs, raps, and chants. I just had to point that out. That's, you hate to lose that, Barbara. But
we give where we can. And the last operational software package is Elevation. Just like for special education meetings, those students who are English language learners have LPAC meetings, and this software facilitates all of the required documentation for the federal and state government for each of those meetings for the students and for the families. All right, so that's all the operational. So supplemental services are next. HMH Read 180 is a supplemental software package and resource and curriculum that we utilize in our classes. It is the actual curriculum for the Read 180 course, which is to support students who struggle in reading. And you can see there, it shows a great deal of growth over the years with our students who are struggling to acquire on grade level reading skills. It is utilized by teachers who were specifically trained in that curriculum. Without this software, we would still need to purchase a curriculum for that course, so this serves as that curriculum. Read Horizons, this was originally funded through a grant. Bryan ISD was awarded a $2 million grant plus for dyslexia intervention, and this was a part of that package. The software was fully funded by the grant and got us all of the materials to go with it. The part that we now maintain is the online resource and library for teachers. It's roughly $120,000, and it's utilized in grades K through 3, and it is utilized daily. I think Mrs. Carabine, when she goes to checking in with the soup, this is one of the teachers' favorites. They are very thankful to have access to Read Horizons for phonics curriculum and support for their students. Summit K-12, I put this one on here. I want you to know that you will likely see a change in this recommendation. Last year we held it as well. It was a new software package that supports the acquisition of English for listening, speaking, reading, and writing for our English language learners, and provides it in a way that is simulated for what they would experience on the state assessment for that test, which is TELPAS, and also helps with writing skills. It's a relatively new software to the district. This is only its second year of implementation. Last year, we waited until we had results in from TELPAS before we made the recommendation. Initial results showed that it was a stronger support, perhaps at the elementary level, and so we gave it another year to see how the data is shaping up. Dr. Morris just completed the analysis, and we're reviewing those results right now. So you might see a different amount before we come to the board at the evening meeting based on that data. It could possibly be less, perhaps maybe not the middle schools and intermediates. They struggle to get the number of minutes of use into the system where it would actually help the child. So in that sense, it's not truly helping the child. There's not a larger evidence of impact there. But at any rate, we do see some correlation at the elementary level that there's merit in this software helping the students be more successful on those assessments. But we'll bring more to you at the evening meeting for this particular software package. The last one on here is SESI, Specialized Educational Services. This is the one that we introduced last year for the first time. The board approved it in April, and we implemented over the summer and bringing it into the school year. This is the Sierra School for students with differentiated needs for behavioral supports and interventions. It has a maximum caseload or student enrollment of 20 students. That number has fluctuated throughout the year. It's becoming more stable that there's about 15 to 20 students there regularly. Dr. Warren is looking at applying for high-cost funds to help offset some of this this expense to the district. In this first year, we don't know how many of those dollars we'll actually see because students have to be there a certain number of days for it to meet that threshold. But that would potentially help offset some of the funding that's going towards this. That comes directly from the state of Texas and would not come out of the local budget. So far, we are seeing an improvement for these students and a reduction of referrals and missing school days due to behavior. So in that sense, it has been successful. Their attendance is also up because they're not being removed from school. So we're glad to see that. And we've even had students return back to the general education setting after spending time getting the help that they need from this particular service. That being said, this is one the district continues to review and to watch the data on because it is quite expensive. And also why Dr. Warren's seeking out those high-cost funds to help offset the actual cost for it.
Would you explain the graphs? So the total number of referrals, is that?
For those individual
For those
students.
oh my gosh, okay.
Yes, sir. From the prior year to this year, yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. So what Dr. Warren is looking at has to do with their attendance and days in the seats to be able to justify writing the grant for the
Yeah.
high cost?
Yeah, so the high-cost funds, a student, basically, the district would have to show that it's spent upwards of $36,000 plus on a student in order to qualify. I'm overly simplifying a very complex
Okay.
process. I apologize, Dr. Warren. And so because they weren't there for the whole school year, maybe just a part of the school year, it doesn't meet
Oh.
that threshold yet. And so the more the students are there receiving the supports, the more likely we are. It's by the individual child, not children moving in and out. You can apply for the high-cost fund offset for individual child circumstances. And we have a few that do meet that threshold, and so we will attempt it. It's never a guarantee that you will get those funds, and the application process is anything but clear or ordinary. But we are seeking those funds. We won't know until July if we qualified for the ones that we are putting forward to help offset the cost.
So we had a total of 23 total for these. I know you said it's kind of going, is that?
20 seats, but unique students over the course of the year.
Okay.
There
we
were
had
23, Dr.
23
Warren.
over the whole, so we spent $850,000 on these 23 kids.
Plus high school, yes. There were more than 23 unique students, though, I believe, no? 23 for sure? Okay, my apologies.
See, when I say it like that,
Yeah.
it sounds like a lot.
It is, and that's why we seek
Yeah,
those
you have
high-cost
to.
funds. You're absolutely right.
Okay.
But if they had not been there the whole year to hit that threshold, then it would not qualify.
When we heard about this last year, we talked about some of the staffing requirements that the Sierra School would offset as roughly half of the cost of this. Is
Yes,
that-
great point.
is that-
Dr. Warren, if you'd like to come on up and explain that. But yes, sir, we did. We did reduce staff at the high schools and middle schools in particular in these same settings because this service now offset that cost of staff members. I don't know the number, but I'm betting Dr. Warren will know that number.
Good memory, Joel.
That is a good memory. So when we looked at the staffing at the high schools especially, but also the middle schools, and how many staff, not just teachers, but instructional assistants, special ed counselors, all those types of related services that are going to be poured into the student services. Once we entered into a contract with Sierra School or SESI, they brought in a lot of that support for the students, so we were able to reduce several positions, especially at SFA and Bryan High School. So those positions were vacant, most likely, and were moved over to other campuses that may have the need, or went into excess, and so we didn't even fill those positions with that need. What we're seeing this year is a very consistent enrollment moving up from this past year to this coming year, which means we're not asking for additional staff at middle school or high school for the students coming up, because those positions have already been dissolved and the students are being supported well through Sierra School. So we're not seeing an increase, but we've already reduced them, so you're not going to see that reduction again.
So this 850,000 is salaries also for the Sierra School staff that's brought in?
So the $850,000 is a total package of what they offer. So it's going to be the teachers, the teacher assistants, their social worker, their climate manager, and their
Right.
director that they bring in.
So that explains a lot of the cost. But when you see the number, I mean, I can close my eyes and envision the exact students we're talking about. But when we see the number of referrals, and you're talking about the students that walk the halls, the students that kind of escape and takes manpower to find them, that type of child, you go from 457 to 106, including the manpower it takes to keep those kids in class, learning, studying, I can understand the 800. I know it's an exorbitant amount, but I can certainly understand everything that goes into that 850,000.
And we've had children in my kids' classes, one disruptive child can, the rest of the kids learn nothing. So I do understand that, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's not worth it, but it can absolutely keep the other 20 kids from learning anything because you have one that is
Right.
disruptive. So I do see
And it
that.
takes so much manpower and pulls SROs and monitors and all kinds of people in to deal with that, and to know that there is staffing included in that 850 is
Yes.
easier to
So we have
understand.
several students that came to Sierra School with an IEP that stated that they needed a one-on-one aid or transitioning services in the hallway to escort them from one place to another. And through their success at Sierra School, we've been able to remove that from the IEP. And the way that the contract is written is that that one-on-one support would still be provided by Bryan ISD, and we no longer have to provide that for those students because of the success that they have experienced. And then additionally, what you'll see with that, especially both the numbers in blue up there for this school year, the bulk of those numbers were before this, even though they're for this school year, it was before the student actually enrolled in Sierra School. Maybe they enrolled mid-year, and then it significantly dropped after that. So that number, most of those numbers were still before they enrolled at Sierra School.
I'm glad you brought that up.
And the last question I have, not to be the naysayer here, but you were saying, and again, I think it's a good program, but Joel was mentioning that we were saving on the other positions, but those were actually not being paid anyway. Is the majority of them not being utilized? Is that what you're saying? Like at SFA, you said we had vacancies. So if we have vacancies,
we would always have a substitute in that position because we do have
oh,
to
okay,
serve
okay.
the
So
child.
it was still a cost, period.
Exactly. Or in most cases, we were actually pulling a specialist, a sped counselor, someone who is highly trained in our behavior support to fill that role, and then they were no longer that district support, which could cause other issues. So
I just wanted to clarify that we were still paying, just because they were vacant, we were pulling people from other positions, so.
Correct.
It's not like we're not making magic numbers here, we were still paying that. Okay,
No,
thank
we
you.
were paying it through likely ESS and contracted services.
Okay, thank you.
Are most or all of these students special ed? Is that,
That is a
Okay.
requirement of the program.
well, the legislature came up with something, and maybe it was briefly addressed, I don't know, about some sort of customized funding for special ed. Can you have anything you can tell us on that? Is that gonna help us or not with this kind of issue, because this is all out of local funds?
So we're not going to see any benefit of the special ed changes in funding for this coming school year. It's all slated for the 26-27 school year. But what I'm seeing an immediate benefit of is on the evaluations, when we actually evaluate students and qualify or disqualify for special ed. But as far as the weighted funding moving from the way that we fund special ed now into a service of intensity model, you're not going to see the benefits of that funding this coming school year.
One thing you mentioned, my slide clicker is not working. Mr. Falls, if you'd go back to the table at the very beginning, the first or the
We need
second
to up
slide.
our battery budget again?
There we go. One item that we didn't cover that is also on here is what she just discussed, which is contracted services. And so last year, when we came to the Board of Trustees, we said when we have vacant positions for diagnosticians, for school psychologists, for speech therapists, we'd like to take the amount of money set aside for those positions and do contracted services with these entities that can provide it. So basically, it would be a neutral impact to the district. And in fact, we came to the board and said, rather than us saying we want to use this particular provider, we gave a list of providers that we would like to utilize because those positions go very quickly. And each of them is always going to be over that threshold of $50,000. So that allowed Jennifer to move forward with getting the contracted services. In the particular area of speech pathologists, that's a struggle.
Yes.
And that is certainly one that we know is difficult to get to. If they have the person, we want to interview that person and have them under contracted services as quickly as possible. It's a to be determined up there right now because we're looking to determine exactly how many vacant positions we anticipate so that we bring a net neutral recommendation to the Board of Trustees. And always with those contracts, we have the opportunity to pivot if we have an applicant that we're able to find. We no longer have to continue with those services if we're able to hire instead.
One of the great benefits of that for this coming school year is that we have actually been able to hire on as BISD staff from some of those that we contracted with last year. We didn't have to buy them out, but we had to contract with them for a certain amount of time. And for us, we almost got to practice with them to make sure that they were that high quality candidate that we would want in our district with a contracted service. And then we were able to offer them a full-time position And we're moving into this next school year with some of our positions filled that we've never seen filled across a program. For instance, our school psychologists right now, we're fully staffed in all of our positions for school psychology and for educational diagnostician.
All right, any other questions? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move to consent agenda. Several items are on the consent agenda. As y'all know, any board member can remove an item from the consent agenda, and it can be acted on individually. If anyone would like to do so, please say so. If not, then I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Stasny, I move approval of all the items listed on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Gonzalez and seconded by Ms. Benford. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous? Passed. Action items, discuss and consider approval of contract renewal with Kickstart Kids program for the 25-26 school year. And we have Mr. Besaw and Mr. Rush. By the way, I'll just throw this out while they're coming up here. When we were first considering this, I went to, oh crap, now I forgot his name,
Chuck Norris?
huh?
Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris's, yes, yes. Chuck Norris's ranch, and we all had a good time and met.
y'all really?
and- Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and,
Before it even got in its school.
so that was, quite a few years ago, by the way.
Kinda wild.
Yeah, well, I don't think we can approve this until we guys check it out again. If Mr. Norris is listening, would you kindly contact him?
Well, they
They're
were,
calling.
they were good salespeople on it, and it's done well.
Good afternoon. Currently, the Kickstart program is being offered at the 3 intermediate schools and the middle school. And so we're requesting to renew those programs for the upcoming school year. Dobla currently right now is full-time. J. Long, Sadberry are also, Sam Rayburn is also full-time in J. Long. And Sadberry, because of the increase in numbers of participants there, we're looking to make that program full-time this upcoming school year. So, any questions?
So, Derek,
Yes.
what would it take to get the program at SFA? Because I know you remember that parent came to the
Yeah.
meeting that night, and after that, I saw it on the social media, and there were a lot of parents
Right. Well,
concerned about having support of having it there.
the current issue we had at SFA right now is space. You know, as we all know, SFA is landlocked as far as having space there. To be honest with you, right now, as far as the increased numbers in athletics and fine arts, we barely do have enough space to facilitate those kids right now. And so it's landlocked, and that's our biggest issue at SFA.
Could they use this room? I'm just saying, we got to think outside the box.
Yeah, they have to have areas to change clothes.
Right.
and-
No, that's
You have
true.
to have their own locker room area
So
and things
my
of that
question
nature as
is,
well.
looking at the numbers, like, it looks like there's really good numbers at the intermediates. Can you explain why there's only 40 at Davila? That just seems low, given the number in the intermediates, unless maybe that's a typo. I don't know.
Well, and a lot of times when they hit middle school, they start thinking about athletics, and in all the fine arts, band, orchestra, choir, et cetera, so they start having to pick and choose. Right now, in intermediate, it counts as their PE requirement.
That's correct.
So they're often happy to go in that route, but what we see, and this is very common in other school districts, once you hit the middle schools, it competes with the athletic periods and some of the other extracurriculars.
So it may not even be that big of a.
Well, I mean,
at
that's
SFA.
why I'm asking about that,
Gotcha.
because it looks like numbers are really strong at intermediates, but I can remember being the one that really fought to get that at Davila, when we moved to 7-8 campuses. And so I'm disappointed to see those numbers. I don't know what it's looked like over time, but that feels lower than what I would anticipate, so.
Again, it also goes back to, like Ms. Carabine was saying, as far as once they leave the intermediate, they start seeing the other interests in fine arts and also athletics, and so at the middle school level. And so that kind of shows you the decrease in interest.
But back to that, what's the justification for expanding to middle school programs if students do have the option to do that at Davila and are not taking us up on that at the same rate?
And on that same note, is it worth having it for 40 students for $78,000? I mean, these schools that have 400 kids in it and, even 150 kids in it is one thing, but if we're only having 40 for $78,000, that's a lot of money.
Well, right now, I just got these numbers as far as the Davila numbers will double next year as far as between 75 and 80 kids.
Okay, so maybe it was an anomaly.
Okay.
So when we have these numbers, like this, Derek, and you say when they get to middle school, it sounds like we're making them have to make a choice. Either you do Kickstart or how are they not working together? I thought that was something we had as a board decided that whatever the child wanted to be in, we'd make some kind of way. So if they wanted to be in Kickstart and play the drums, we'd accommodate that so they could do both, because they might decide they want to try Kickstart, they want to try the drums, and they might not like one of them, but then they're locked into this one. So how can we ensure that's not a problem? And I want to be in Kickstart, but I have to pick between Kickstart or the trumpet.
I can assure you, as far as when it comes to athletics, we encourage all our kids to participate in whatever athletic event or fine art event they want to participate in. Since I've been in this role, I haven't seen that interpretation as far as controversy between a Kickstart person wanting to participate in athletics, and it been a controversy from that standpoint of it. But again, at the end of the day, we encourage them, if they want to play athletics, we're going to encourage them to do that, and same thing at Kickstart, and we'll work out a way where they can, that can fit into their schedule.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't want us to make kids have to
Choose.
choose, and then we're paying all these money for these programs, and then the kids are, even though you understand that, I want to make sure your staff understands that that is what we want for the children. Sometimes it might not fit that, the star quarterback, I don't want him doing this other stuff. No, don't worry about what he's doing. Worry about your program. If he want to do 2 or 3 things, that's what we want, especially if we're paying this kind of money. For the programs, it's for the kids.
Yes, we agree,
100%
Ms.
agree.
Benford. We want them to do it all, especially at the younger ages. But what we see, again, and I've seen this in other districts, is the kids start self-selecting out of it. They're narrowing their focus because a lot of these kids, fortunately, are very involved in other things outside of the school day. They're playing, Little League and all the things happening in our community. But we do encourage them. We want our coaches and fine arts directors to work together to give kids every single opportunity possible. But the older the kids get, the more they start to just self-select out.
Specialize.
They start specializing.
One additional item that probably it's actually remarkable that Davila's numbers are increasing so much in the coming year. Remember, this year was the year that we switched from an 8-period day at middle school to a 7-period day at middle school. It gave teachers more planning time and kind of normalized a 7-period day schedule for these students, which means that's one fewer choice in their schedule, and yet the numbers are still going to be doubling at Davila. So that is good news in terms of the program being built and working with that Kickstart instructor out at Davila. And they still have the opportunity to participate in the after-school program for Kickstart, if I'm not mistaken.
So can we ask that you say space, and we figured 78,000 is not in the cards right now, but can you look and see what the odds are of us putting it into SFA in the near future and all that's involved? Because like Felicia said, it may start with 30 and then Davila may double. And because I'm sure the lady that spoke and her daughter are speaking for several, if
More than
not
one
many.
person, yeah.
and it's such a good program.
Do we get a break for more schools, price-wise?
No.
No? Oh, my gosh. And didn't even get to visit the ranch.
Yeah, I think, because it's actual staff, it's like they help underwrite part of it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of
I
a
think they
deal.
offset about $59,000 a staff member.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay. I withdraw the question. Wow.
All right, we,
I move to authorize district administration to enter into a contract with Start Kids for the 2025-2026 school year.
Second.
all right, motion was made by Dr. Harlan. You still go by Harlan, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, just
That's
making sure.
fine.
All right.
We know who you're talking about.
And I'll go with Ruthie on the second, and so we've got motion and second. Any further discussion?
Yes, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, it's unanimous. All right, I think we have one more
Thank you.
action item. Discuss and consider approval of purchase requests over $50,000 for Skyward Enterprise Software Annual Support Renewals for the 25-26 school year. We have Jennifer Lemons and Julie Johnson.
Hello, good afternoon. I wanted to give you guys just an update on our Skyward transition and migration. So just to kind of recap, what is Skyward? There are two parts. There's our business side, which is all things kind of back of house, finance, payroll, human resources, warehouse, fixed assets. And then what we are in progress with right now is the move to Skyward for our student information system, which is, as you can imagine, all things about the student and family information, grades, attendance, their schedules, discipline. So we have been really busy working on all of this over really the last year and a half. It's gone by like in the blink of an eye. So just to kind of help paint the picture of what we've accomplished, we are fully operational on the business side. January was our 1-year Skywardversary, and we took a little bit of time to just reflect back on all that we had accomplished, and it was absolutely a team effort. And when we looked at, you know, statistics and things of that nature, it was amazing what the team accomplished, and I'm very proud of them. So right now, we are in progress with migrating our student data, and we are in the thick of training. We have many training sessions coming up this summer. We're trying to document processes. You know, we had used our previous software for 20 plus years, and that becomes very ingrained in your mind. And so this has afforded us the ability to kind of peel back the layers of, we've always done it like that. And so we want to make sure that we're kind of seizing the opportunity to document how we do things the new way, that hopefully promote lots of efficiencies. And then our go live date, actually that will happen about July 1st. All of the migration will be done, and we will be fully on Skyward. And so we're anxiously awaiting all of that data to come back so we can get busy. One of the things that we're really proud of is some of the cost savings that we have realized by moving to Skyward. We spent the last year moving over 1,300 employees away from Time Clock Plus to the Skyward Time Clock system. Then our plan is to begin using the Skyward attendance letters. So that will reduce the need for another piece of software, RAWE. And then also just beginning to learn all of the different data tools that Skyward offers. One of the things, and I gave you just a quick picture of what kind of a Skyward desktop can look like. It has live tiles, and users can create those tiles to watch all kinds of data points. I can monitor the enrollment, and you can see I can configure them to meet my needs, and they're live. So the numbers that you're seeing there, for example, in the top left corner, that blue one that says unrecorded attendance. This is out of a sandbox database, but that would tell me there are 25 teachers at that campus that have not taken attendance for that period right there. So it kind of puts the data at your fingertips and is really changing the way we think about it and work. And so it's really exciting, and that was like a really fast drive through Skyward.
What's the reaction still? I know I've asked occasionally, but is it still positive overall? I know you said people are used to the old way, and it's always, change is not easy.
It is. It's hard, and I'm seeing lots of growth in that, like where in the beginning it was stressful. It's very different, and now I see problem solving happening. Oh, well, let me check this, and of course, with, like you said, new things, sometimes it can be a pain point, but we're also realizing lots of positive comments like, oh, I didn't know. I can just real quick get to that piece of information.
Well, and Kevin was saying earlier about position.
Yeah.
Earlier when Kevin mentioned position control and how much we're using that to help us make sure our budget numbers, which we weren't able to do previously. So, yes, it's made a big difference.
And the overall cost is lower than we were with the piecemeal that we had before, or about the same?
It is lower, and
It's hard to argue with that.
I know, and so that's why we're really looking at, like, for example, with the time clock, we could have kept along, and $21,000 savings is definitely not going to balance the budget, but
That helps.
it helps. And our view was it would be worth the time and the effort and, the frustration as you're learning, to kind of get everything under the umbrella that we bought. And that was part of the purpose of it, was to streamline and become more efficient. So it's been really good.
Ginger, I know you used this previously.
Yeah,
What is your impression?
I was a Skyward user in another district on a less sophisticated model. We have the upgraded version, and I can tell you, I like it, and I appreciate the board's approval because it has minimized inefficiencies, and more importantly, it's minimized human error with a less sophisticated system. So the position control alone is critical for us to determine our budget. We have to know where we stand, and the data as far as student information and employee information has to be accurate. And I also think it's user-friendly. My opinion is it's more user-friendly than what we had, and I personally like having the app on my phone. I can go in on my phone if I'm at a meeting or something and approve an absence or a time clock, et cetera, since I'm a manager of sorts. So I think once everyone gets used to it, they're going to realize this is a better platform, and then we will reap the benefits with efficiency and accuracy.
I'm glad you mentioned the phone app. For example, with a teacher who may also be a parent, and of course they're an employee, so they could, in that one app, they can do employee-related things, request a day off, things of that nature. As a teacher, let's say I'm out on the tennis court with my tennis team and it's time to take attendance, I can do that from my phone. And as a parent, in that exact same app, I can do all the things that a parent would like to do in an app, check my grades and attendance and see events coming up. And so we're excited to kind of get to rolling all of that out for.
Still remember the old days. Remember they'd hang up the attendance and the special kids could go and you had to go to the office and take those.
You must have been in office age.
I wasn't, I wasn't trusted going down the halls, but I knew people.
Yeah, so we're very grateful for the board's approval. We believe it's a good platform, and the migration, the transition of all of our data, the training, the implementation, et cetera, has, in my mind, been seamless because of these two people sitting out there at this table.
Thank you.
I commend them for the work they've done with the training piece of it.
Thank you.
Well, on that, I move approval of the contract to Skyward in the amount of $253,239 for Skyward Enterprise Software annual support renewals as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Gonzalez, seconded by Ms. Benford to approve the renewal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Sounds like it was unanimous, so that is passed.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, the board will now convene in closed session to discuss the following items as allowed by the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551074, 551087, 5510821, we've got appointment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, et cetera, public officer or employee, and also discussion related to public school student, whereas personally identifiable information will necessarily be revealed, and consultation with attorney regarding financial terms of JEDI tax incentive program, and possibly issues related to purchase, exchange, lease, or value of property. And we might discuss T-shirts also, but if that's really allowed.
So Ginger, when we come back, is there a way for me to?
One, 22, 23.
You weren't here.
Board reconvened in open session at 2:33 PM. No action was taken in closed session. Now consider approval of the recommendation to hire a Director of Transportation.
I move approval of the superintendent's recommendation to hire Bryant Washington as the Director of Transportation Services.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Waller, seconded by Ms. Benford. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? It's unanimous. Now consider approval of the recommendation to hire a principal of Johnson Elementary.
Mr. Stasny, I move approval of the superintendent's recommendation to hire Laura De La Rosa as the principal of Johnson Elementary.
Second.
That you? Okay. Motion made by Mr. Gonzalez and seconded by Ms. Benford. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Approved unanimously. There being no further business, the meeting is adjourned at 2:34.
And I'm going
Thank
to
you.
jinx myself, but